Well, I want y'all to know that I have heard all the rumors since we've been down here, and they are not true. I have not been here for 125 years, regardless of how old I may look to you up on this stage today. To be sure that you understood that, I brought with me a picture of my very first day on the job at the KBA. We got in the archives and got it out. There. I still have the shotgun in my office. I had just walked out of a meeting, my very first meeting with the regulators. I keep the shotgun. Those meetings haven't changed much over the years. But of course, when I sit here and I look at this, I'm thinking to myself, what a fickle woman Mother Nature is, right? Take a cute kid like that and turn him into something that looks like this. Wow. If you'll bear with me this morning, I would like to take you back to 1891, the year that the Kentucky Bankers Association was founded. The second industrial revolution is in full swing. The Gilded Age is on its way out. The President of the United States is from Indiana. The Hatfield and McCoy blood feud in eastern Kentucky is over, or so they said. Sherlock Holmes is headed to the printer for its first edition in 1891. And probably more important than anything to Kentuckians is that there was a gentleman in Kansas by the name of Dr. James Naismith, and he was inventing a game called basketball. And wait a second, we've got a better picture than that. There. That's it. Take that, Kansas. In 1891, we had 82 banks across the Commonwealth from east to west. We were serving 1,860,000 souls. Our primary economy was wild game and agriculture, a little bit of coal, not much. Our two primary products were hemp and tobacco, and we were known worldwide to be the best producer of both. And we're still known today to produce one pretty well, but I'll let you all decide which one that is. But also in 1891, every Kentucky banker was still suffering from those horrible memories of a civil war that was not that long over. The economic devastation of which was still lingering in the corners of some places. And those deep, dark, those bitter wounds that every family experienced, unlike anything that we know of today. But it was those horrible memories, it was those deep wounds that made our Kentucky bankers who they are. Because you see, they understood the dangers of division. They understood what it meant not to be united. After all, they had just lived through the greatest challenge of all to our Commonwealth's motto, united we stand, divided we fall. Now, if you go back and look in the archives, you'll see that our banks had three really big problems back in 1891. They had no voice in state and federal government. They had no voice within the state's broader business community, and they had no resources, financial or otherwise, to even start to fix problems number one and problems number two. Individual bankers were having to leave their financial institution and their communities way too often to go talk to elected officials and politicians, business leaders around the state, to try to convince them what it was they needed for their financial institution to grow, but also what they needed for their community to grow. So what did they do? Well, they did the only smart thing they could do in 1891 and today, they joined forces. They united. They created an organization that could help them solve their problems. They created an organization that could help them build consensus. They created an organization that could provide daily advocacy for their common needs. They created the Kentucky Bankers Association. Now, I got in the archives, as I've been mentioning, and I looked back at that first roster, and I'll tell you, it looks a whole lot like today's roster. Now, granted, there's a lot more zeros, and thank goodness there's a lot more banks. But there's a whole lot more similarities than there are differences. If you look at that roster, there are, relatively speaking, large banks, and there were small banks. There are banks in the city, and there are banks in the rural communities. And if you read the minutes, consensus and unity of purpose, well, they were just as hard to come by back then as they are today. But because our bankers in 1891 figured out a way to unite this industry and strengthen it, we were able to hold our heads through a 20th century that saw the advent of change, like switching to electrical power, the first flight. There was the creation of the Federal Reserve. There was World War I, World War II, the Great Depression, the creation of the FDIC, the Cold War, the Vietnam War, Watergate, the dot-com bubble, and just 16 years into our current century, you can add to that list the rise of terrorism, the global financial crisis of 2008, and the creation of Dodd-Frank, and the creation of the so-called CFPB. I got this slide just for you guys. That's the fourth stage of Dante's Hell, in case you missed it. But in the face of all of that, in the face of all that change, you, the banking industry, your association, we endured. We have so much to be proud of. We powered the development of the coal industry in Kentucky. We powered the development of the distilled spirits industry in Kentucky. It's because of a financial formula designed in Kentucky that enabled the equine industry to grow globally. We helped make Kentucky the largest producer of artificial rubber. And we're an automobile manufacturing hub. We've got Toyota in Georgetown. We have GM in Bowling Green. And we have Ford in Louisville. And because we have a safe, sound, and strong financial institution in every county across this Commonwealth, Kentucky is well on its way to becoming one of this country's fastest growing export states. They deserve that. But it's all because 125 years ago, our bankers found a way to unite our industry so that our industry could serve other industry, so that our industry could serve consumers, so that those consumers could help build this great Commonwealth. Now, this morning, I've tried to give you a really quick look at what was going on in 1891, what was in the minds of those bankers in 1891, what they were going through, what they were thinking about, why they would form the Kentucky Bankers Association. But the entire time that I'm talking about that, I want you to know that I'm very cognizant of the fact that we have fourth and fifth generation bankers in this room this morning whose forefathers were in that room in 1891, who were charter members of the Kentucky Bankers Association, have been members every day since, and have never wavered. Now, I'm going to tell you, we owe our founding bankers remembrance. We owe them gratitude, and we most certainly owe them our respect. But more than anything, we owe them our resolve. We owe them our resolve to live into that vision, to live into that dream that they had of a commonwealth full of safe, sound, strong financial institutions walking side by side, hand in hand with a strong association, helping them with every problem that comes up every day, no matter what this world throws at us. Now, I've run a little bit over this morning. I'm watching the clock and I'm past my time. But if you'll bear with me for another second, those of you that can and able, please stand for just a second. Thank you. Look around the room. Just take a second. Turn and look. What do you see? You see your family. You see your friends. You see your neighbors. But most importantly, you see your partners. Those partners that are going to help you live into your dream. Those partners that are going to help you live into your vision of what it is you have for your financial institution and for your community. So give yourselves a round of applause. You're 125 years old, and it's nothing to take lightly. Please be seated. I'm sorry. Again, I want to thank you one last time for coming to help us celebrate our 125th anniversary. Together in this room, we are each other's commonwealth. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. It means the world to our industry that you're here. It means the world to the association, your staff, your board of directors, and it means more than you'll ever know to me. So thank you very much for being here. Thanks.